Hello and welcome to the second featurette for the newer podcast features series. And we have Carol Healy with us, and we are going to speak all about Carol and all about her practice. But first, I'd just like to inform you that we are doing this on a monthly basis now. So every month we will feature two artists. This month in October, it is Robert Jackson and Carol Healy, and we will share all of their work and all of their practice across our New Collective channels, whether it would be on our website at www.newcollective.com or via our social channels, which are at Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you name it, we're on it. So do check those out, see all the recent works and see all of the work about our feature artists. So welcome, Carol. Carol, how are you doing?
I'm good, Eamonn. Thanks very much. I'm delighted to be here with you to have this conversation.
Good. We are so excited to hear about what it is you do as an artist, essentially, and kind of like how you came to become an artist and all of the ins and outs around that and what influences you and how your work is today and how it has evolved to where it is today. And hopefully we will all know an awful lot more about Carol Healy by the time we're finished. So first of all, let's go to the beginning. Let's start from the origin of Carol. Origin there, a little bit of a dig in there. But yeah, so if we let's go back to day one. Carol, what was that thing when you were a kid, or maybe it was much later? When was it when was it that trigger came that said, oh, I really like making things, or I really like being a creator, I really like being an artist?
Well, I suppose if I go right back to, my childhood, my parents have creative backgrounds. My mom studied fashion and design in Dublin. She used to design on all her own clothes. She was really a beautiful sketcher, and she used to ask me to sit or if I was just sitting down, she would just sketch and do these really fast little portraits of me, and then we'd sit later and we'd look at the drawing, and moments like that, I think, I was appreciating drawing back then. Wasn't thinking I want to be an artist, but yeah, and I suppose that's what I grew up with. I was used to both parents being able to draw. My dad, he trained as a printer in Dublin, and like we're talking, years ago. So it was real old school. So he would have worked on the letterpress, and that's a really slow, methodical way of printing, which it's a beautiful process. And he also had a hobby of calligraphy. So at home, he'd sit at the table, take out the fountain pen. He'd clear the space, of course, and he'd make it really nice. And he'd put down if it was a book, often we had neighbors maybe would come with, a confirmation Bible, or, with the books for the confirmation and communion, and they wanted him to do the calligraphy inside to put the name on it, or it could be anything else. But just that whole lovely process that he had of everything being all in its place and clearing the space, and then getting the fountain pen and the ink, and I'd be sitting there quietly watching, and then the ink, I've always loved the ink hitting the paper, and just that stroke and line and the precision and his concentration and focus. So that was the environment at home when I was a child. So there was those lovely moments of loving the drawing, the line, and just, I suppose, beyond that, it was the atmosphere that it created, a very relaxing atmosphere, and a quiet time our house was not like some sort of quiet place at all, so these little moments were actually very nice. And I think I was really that stuck with me, because I can see today in my studio, the way I lay out my work, it is mirroring very much my father's way of working in the print. I used to go into work with him sometimes, and I'd see all the reams of paper stacked up, blank sheets of paper were just heaven to me, you know, just to see them and to want to touch them and smell them. And then to, you know, and it was inside this big old dirty factory, but, you know, all the paper was pristine. So I love that. And also thinking back as well, something that came to mind when I knew I was going to be talking to you. When I was about, I'd say I was about 9 or 10, and I was walking down through the houses where we live, in our park. We lived in kind of an estate, and most of the windows of the houses had net curtains, and they might have a vase of flowers or Ainsley, something like that, you know, back in the 80s. So that was kind of the setup of the windows. There was a lot of net curtains. And I remember passing a window one evening, and it was just no curtains, and it was just all white interior, and there was like a green plant, and I think it might have been a busy lizzie, and it stopped me in my tracks. I just was walking past, and it just struck me as something so beautiful, and it was only about 9 or 10, and it was so gorgeous that I'd say, you know, a few days later, I decided that I'd pass down again. I just wanted to see it again. You know, I just wanted to see this gorgeous, it was a square shaped window, sharp edges, all white, green plant. And it really made the plant stand out. So I guess like back then, you're talking about the kind of like the white space, you know, of a gallery, you know. So I've been drawn to that. I don't know why, but that is what happened. It stopped me. So, and when I look at my drawings today, like let's say the Quidditas of Arbor, the whole point of those is this big sheet of white paper, and then it's just the little dots that go onto it, and it's just that placing it in that white space, you know. For me, it's creating this a feeling and an essence of calm and peace and just something beautiful. And that's what it is. It's putting something beautiful into a white space. That's intrigued me, and I can go right back to that moment when I saw that window with the busy lizzie, and it just stopped me in my tracks. I wouldn't have connected that until just recently. And so, you know, you make all these connections. And I guess like there's something so lovely about, and as well, watching my dad do his calligraphy and my mum doing her drawings, there's something about having that white piece of paper in front of you, and it's this space where you get to have, I suppose, a bit of control and just to put something in there, and nothing else is interfering with it, you know, because in the world and in our homes, everything can be all messy and cluttered and whatever. But I suppose that's where I'm always trying to achieve that kind of sense of order, I suppose, and just, you know, putting something beautiful in there. The same if you look at my bark drawings, I think it's Solastasia. With the bark drawings as well, I have them isolated on the page, and it's that thing again of just beholding. This is something that I have found that I think is beautiful, and for you to see it, I don't want anything to interfere with it, so I put it into this white space. So yeah, there's a lot of that's I suppose the journey from when I was a child up to now, that connection that has, you know, I've just been looking at. Yeah, so
it's wonderful that you had such a creative environment to be brought up in, and to have that early insight into the creative process and the many forms of creative processes, and the fact that both of your parents were both very artistic, but in different ways, and that they had they had different avenues of working. And I suppose in creativity, in the creative arts, there are so many different outlets, so many different outlets that you can express your creativeness. And I suppose you had firsthand influence there as to how that could be from the very beginning, which is very obviously very beneficial to you in your practice and today. So as your influences kind of, I suppose it's great to hear that like you've had that from day one, really. And amazing to hear that story about just what you had observed. And I suppose you are an observant person, and you can tell that very clearly from the fact that you were just observing how you were looking at how your dad worked, and the attention to detail that he had, and how he just even laid out his space. And it seems that even within your current work in your studio, you create things with such specificness, and such detail, and all of the elements that you include within your work seem to have a clear directiveness, something that is articulate. You articulate your work very specifically. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's funny to talk about art, especially when I'm talking about my art. As I was saying, like what I put down on a piece of paper is, I suppose that's the part where I have the control. That's where I can put things down. You don't often see anything that's beyond that. The process, I suppose, of me making the art would be I work outdoors a lot. So these drawings, some of the drawings I make outdoors, all right, but a lot of the drawings that I make are indoors, and that's when I have that time where I can just create things again in a nice space and have that control, because when you're outside, you don't have that at all.
The word control, I suppose, is something that is immediately, you think restriction or you think restrictive. Is that something that you aim to do, is to put controls in place? I love
clean line, and I love detail, and I love planning, and I love all of that part of the process. So there's a lot of that in the process. And if that goes wrong, then I often go with it as well. There's a lot of repetition in my work. And that is just something, it's I suppose the process, it's beyond words really. I can't describe it, but it's like, first of all, I work outside a lot in nature. I go to places that I love to go to, that I feel like when I go there, say to the sea. At the moment, I'm doing a lot of drawings that I didn't think I'd end up doing at all, but it's where I go swimming. So it's a specific place, and when I'm there, I get in the water, it's freezing or whatever it is, and there's jellyfish and there's seaweed and whatever. But my God, I just love it. Like you get into the water and it's like you're totally renewed, and you go through so much because I'm not really confident in the water, but I get in and I swim and I get out, but I feel great when I get out. And it just absolutely revitalizes me and energizes me. So with all of that, and I just always think when I look at I've been doing these drawings then with watercolors called Swim, and they look really controlled. But there is more to that. I put in the colors in there. They kind of represent the different, I suppose, feelings that I have, and I can't describe it all, but there's so much that goes on when you get into the water, that it's just going into those places and coming back. And it's like sometimes I call my drawings maps, because they are me going into a specific place, and I collect information from that place, and it's just, I kind of, a lot of time I go on my own, and I just, it's really just to have to connect with the nature, to remind myself I'm nature. It's a real thing about connecting to and getting away from the busyness of life and the stuff that you think, you think so many things are important and you're stressed out about this and that. And I have places that I know I can just go sit there for 15 minutes and already the head stops. And and I have these, there are amazing places. I think nature is an absolute powerful thing, and we are nature, and that's the thing. Talking about it, we're separate, but that's what I remember when I go to those places. So there's so much that goes on, and by the end of it, by the time I've finished you know, just being in a place of nature a lot of the time, because I'm so lucky to live very close to a lot of beaches and stuff here down in Cork. So a lot of time, by the time I come home, what I'm carrying with me is a sense of stillness. And I suppose that then is why the drawings have that essence. And that's what I'm trying to bring into the drawings as well.
The sense of stillness.
Yeah, because that's something, personally, I'm always striving to find the stillness within myself. And to be able to stop and to rest and just to have the, you know, there's so much goes on, you know, I try not to listen to the news so much, but you can't escape it. You know, when I'm on my phone, I'm scrolling, the amount of information that goes in, and a lot of it, do I need it? No. But then I think I do. And then I, you know, and it's just the busyness of just even my own home life, all of that, like it's so much. But gosh, I go down to the beach, I sit there, or I go in for a swim, or I go for a walk in the woods, and I'm reset, I'm back. And that's the moment that I try to capture.
And how, so you sit in your studio, and or where is it that you sit? I suppose describe your environment when you're just about to make work.
Oh, well, my studio is quite a small room in my house. So I have my drawing table, which is good size. It is usually full, like I have everything on either side. I make a space for my paper. And then I have my plans chest. I have absolutely loads of books. I have the books piled up. Everything is neat and tidy and in its place. And then it gets all messy. But yeah, it's all as I need is to be able to sit at this table.
Do you find it difficult to get to that point? Or is that something that you come straight from your natural environs and to try and represent that in your artwork? Is that something that you do quite quickly, or is it a space that you have to get into, or how is that process for you?
It depends. It depends, because I would say it's a place I always wanted. I'm always wanting to get into the studio and get it. If I have something on in a day, like I go into schools as well, and I'm a tap artist and a blast artist with schools, and that's fantastic. But my energy is gone. If I'm going into them, even if it's only an hour in the day, it's kind of breaking up the day. I want a full day in studio. Today I had pretty much a full day in studio. I love it. I don't want to say the word meditative, but it's the only word that I can kind of describe. You know, the work that I do sometimes is quite meditative. So I don't want it to be disturbed. And I think that to connect to my own creativity and to, you know, just to come across, you know, to really be present with myself when I'm doing it. Yeah, I try to just have a really clear day where there's nothing that's going to be disrupting the day. But the realistic part of this is that I look after my dad. So he's not too far from me. It's funny how life goes now. I fit my studio in when I can. It could be you know, even late at night I come in here, because anytime it's quiet, and I wear earplugs as well. Sometimes that's another thing. You know, depends on what I'm working on. If I'm working today on, I went back to my old series, which I really love doing, the Quidditas of Arbor. So I know what I'm doing with them, so I don't have to, it depends on if I have to think or concentrate on something else, but they're what I call meditative drawings. And I stick on my earphones, and I might listen to, I was actually listening to a book about meditation actually when I was doing them today. But if I was to listen to music when I'm doing them, I would listen to Leonard Cohen, Arvo Part, who else? Oh my goodness, anybody who you know, and it's funny, I choose musicians as well who what I would call the absolute masters of space, you know. They know how to use it in music. I love space and music. And I suppose that is something that I love with drawing, is the idea of just having space. Yeah.
And throughout this conversation already, Carol, you have mentioned the use of space, the presentation of space, the idea of space, you being in different spaces. It's been something that has been a consistent, but it's brilliant because that clearly is the essence of what it is that you are as a being and what you are as a creator as well. But at what point did that become a massive entity of your work, a massive part of your work?
I made a decision actually to change from, I was making 3D work, kind of making installations. I was using moss, I was using gorse, I was, collecting stuff that I'd find outside, and constructing it, making installations with it. And I suppose it was after I made the moss installation that I had done so much research on moss and really, really learned about the value, and that it takes so long to grow, and it's it holds so much life in it. So I just thought, God, I don't want to be making art about how wonderful something is by ripping it, by taking it away from where it lives. I kind of felt a bit guilty for doing that, but I learned, and then I decided so I made a decision then, like that, I would move away and start doing the drawings. I've always loved drawing, but I was kind of shy actually to put my drawings out there. I had them in my sketchbook, and I remember in college, lots of my colleagues in college would often look through my sketchbooks and just be like, oh, your drawings they're really kind of, they're beautiful, they're unique, they're, yeah. And then the drawings for me were something that had to be hidden away in sketchbook. I didn't want anybody to see them. Then I had the most amazing, I had Megan Eustace in Crawford was my life drawing teacher. And I really have to say, like, that was a huge moment in my, I suppose, in college life anyway. And I never looked back. She was a wonderful teacher, and also did work with her sister Cassie. Yeah, it was amazing. And just, drawing to me now is just, there's so much in it for me personally, and for my artworks. And it's just such a language, and I haven't even scraped, and I think I hold back. That's the only thing I'll say about is that I think that I feel like I'm quite restrictive at the moment, and at the moment in studio as well, I feel like you could expect to see anything coming out of me in the near future, because I'm kind of letting go of those restrictions, and I'm kind of saying to hell with it, and let's do this. Like, who's making the rules? And to just go for it. But yeah, it's a very organic thing, and it takes a long time, I think, for ideas to kind of come out, and then also to make the connections. So I suppose I just turn up every day and I do what I feel like, at one stage I wasn't even going near color. I was just doing pencil drawings and using charcoal, or not even charcoal, I was using ink or whatever. And now I'm kind of getting into color, and when I use color, I use pure color. I draw with watercolor paints. I'm not a painter. I draw with them. And I make marks, I'm not a painter. Not a painter today, but that might change. That's my whole thing now, is like, never say never. But for now, like I use, like, it's close to, I suppose, like, I had coloring. I bought watercolor pencils, which are very kind of remind me of being in school when I was a kid. And I love using them, but I don't mix anything. I'm not trying to copy a landscape ever, you see. I'm never trying to copy a landscape. I'm not a landscape artist. The colors, they come from, I suppose, they're intuitive. It's something I feel, and I just go, okay, I'm going to go with this color. Or, nature based, that they would be some sort of a natural, but I can't say. I'm saying that now, and the swim ones were not, you know, they were more to do, lots of colors came out of the swim series.
Which
So
is
yeah.
amazing, because obviously, as you said before, that's coming from the interaction that you had, the feeling that you had, and the difference of that from almost the anxiety of going into to the sea at the first moment to the relief and the power empowerment that you got from when you left the sea. I suppose that is always going to be a multitude of coloring or multitude of feeling that you get from when you leave that environment to put that on paper is never going to be the sea is blue or the sky is blue or the sand is yellow. You know, it's always going to be something that you experience. So we've spoken quite a bit just about your work and how you work and where your influences come and your experiences. And I suppose the next point really to ask you is, where are you going next? What's next for Carol? What do you want to do next, or what's on the table at the moment? What sort of work are you making at the moment? What's your aim?
Okay, so well, I have applied to an open call. I'm doing that. I look out for all the open calls. They take a lot of work. So I'm waiting to hear back from one of them. But with the open calls, I'm constantly working. So I have a series of drawings, like the Quidditas is a series of drawings that I'm working on, the swim, and then there's more to come from the swim ones as well. So I'm just working away on them. I know what I'm doing. I have them there, and then I'm just looking out for the open calls. But my main focus is just make the work. And you know, and I usually do have some open call that I've sent off a proposal to, but I suppose I am prioritizing the making of the work, and I'm trusting that one day I'll get them up there, and it's great. But I'm enjoying making the work. It's great that I can do that. If I get I had work in Galway, when was it? Last June. So that was lovely. It was really nice to be in a show and, you know, just go up there. It was a gorgeous evening up in Galway. It was just great. Like, and then you just remember how like it's so great to just see your work out there. Like, that's what I'm making it for. It's, you know, it's for people to enjoy and to see it, and to have it opens up conversations as well. You know, it's great. So,
is there a key point of conversation that you want to make in the work that you're presenting? Is there a key thing that you want to discuss?
I would say that I suppose the biggest thing in my work is nature. And just, you know, and again, to remind us we're nature. To mind ourselves, mind our planet, connect with nature, and just be more in nature. You know, to find that space, I'll say it again, but just returning to that space in us. And out of that, then I branch off into the swim ones. Actually, they're places I go to rest. And I think we all need a rest. You know, I think things are we're
too
living
busy.
it's such a fast pace right now, and like, you know, we're all part of it. It's not like, there's no blame here on corporations. Like, we love them. You know, buying online, like, when's it getting here? You know, we get caught up in everything, you know, but it's just to stop and get, you know, when, like, I think in COVID, when we all stopped, we were forced to stop. I enjoyed it. It kind of like it fitted into my life. But even like the environment, when all the cars, when everything came to a halt, you know, people suddenly were like, oh my God, the birds, I can hear the bird. Everybody took notice of nature, and especially within their own neighborhoods, just walking around. Now, that I would that's where I come from all the time. Like that's where I get my art from, is appreciating everything literally on my doorstep and in nature.
Mm.
But it was amazing. I mean, obviously it was a really tough time as well for people, but just to be forced to stop and take, and just, and
Yes.
we couldn't even, we wanted to be busy. People wanted to be busy, the way I would say that I'm quite good actually at resting. I think,
Maybe
I
I
take
think
it seriously. I take it very seriously, and I go down, and when I go to a place like the beach, I wouldn't take out my phone or my camera until I was leaving. I would make sure I just sat there and just, I'd be itching to take out my phone, about, oh my God, that'd be a great shot. And I wouldn't. And I just sit there until it passes. And then I just sit there, because what I'm trying to get is just waiting for something, like, what am I noticing here? Or what's happening? Or just to be there, So yeah.
being present in the space.
Yes.
And then you create those spaces for us to live forever through your artwork, and I think we all appreciate them because they look amazing, and you do get that essence in the work, and I think it's very, very clear. We are very happy to have you speak about your work and about your practice here, and I think you've given us a really cool insight into all the world of Carol Healy, and to see where your work is going and see where it came from. And I think that it will encourage a lot of people to go and check out your work. Hopefully it will anyway, and see more. We can't wait to see what else you're creating. And throughout the next coming weeks, we will be releasing lots of new works by Carol on our New Collective website at newcollective.com, and you can have a look at them and maybe even buy one or two of them, and of course support our professional artist here, and of course you can share all of this with your friends and family across our social channels, and yours, of course, as well, in their networks. So Carol, before we leave you, have you a
Yes.
final point that you need to make?
My final point. Yeah, I think just tell everybody to, stop.
Stop.
Take a rest.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think what was great about, as you said, what was great about COVID, it made us realize what things were important in our lives, because we had an opportunity to stop and think about what is important to us, and to understand that we need to stop and we need to rest. And it is a very important thing to do.
It's not a passive rest. It's, take the rest so that you can come back fighting, empowered.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I would say that most people are more and more productive when they do take on board a little time to recuperate and to get themselves back into fighting form again. And I think we should take that advice from you, Carol, and I'm going to take that advice later and have a nice cup of tea and a bit of cake and just think about absolutely nothing. And you know what? That's absolutely perfect. But thank you, Carol, for taking the time this evening to talk about yourself and talk about your work. And we want to celebrate you, and we want to celebrate you as an artist. And that's why you are a feature artist on New Collective this month. And so do check out her work, www.newcollective.com, and check it out on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, the lot. Just follow us, share it, and let us know what you think. Do give us some feedback if you'd like to, and go and buy something too. Why not? Your house needs a Carol Healy piece in it, so buy one. Exactly. So thank you so much, and we will speak very, very soon. Stay safe and stay creative.